Blockman, Blockman, Blockman! This brick house is one of the top trending robot masters and the only one from Mega Man 11 to be immortalized in toy form. But can I build a better toy than Capcom? Or will my ineptitude crash down upon me like a ton of bricks? Alright, as a big fan of the Mega Mans, I'm pretty excited to start this project. Let's get to work. I've got this pair of teal socks I got from a sporting goods website for $1.50. Some black socks I got for like 50 cents. A white sock, it's got some scraps, really. And then we've got several sheets of gray felt. I've also got some yellow felt. A measuring tape. Colored thread, needle, scissors. A black marker, and some yellow fabric paint. Stuffing. And I'll need some buttons. Not this many, obviously, just like, probably, I don't know, 6. I've got my chopstick for any smaller details or general poking procedures. I have my Mega Man doll to compare scale. Also, every artist needs a quality reference, so I've got a handy resource I picked up from across the street. The first thing I want to do is make the body. You might think we'd start with that gray, but nay! I want the foot of my teal sock. Time to cut, man! Straight across, like so. And I'm gonna stuff this piece nice and full. The reason my body is going to be teal instead of my gray felt is because I want the body to be sturdy. If I just made a stuffed shell of gray felt, then I wouldn't end up with a structure that feels solid. The stitch I'm using here is called the running stitch, and the running stitch is just about running the needle in and out through both sides of your fabric. Best to keep the stitches close together than farther apart. Essentially, I'm making a drawstring, like the sweatpants you keep around for Thanksgiving. And let's run the stitches back and forth over top of the hole to keep it packed in there. And for the head, I'll take some more teal sock and run a line down the length of it to make it a bit smaller than the body, and then across the top. I'm doing this inside out so that when I flip it, the stitches are concealed inside. Trim the excess off, flip it, and stuff it. Now to secure the head to the body, I'm going to use another stitch. Here comes a ladder stitch. A ladder stitch comes from one side of a seam to the other, and then running along the seam before reaching across again. Looks like a ladder. Ish. This would pull the seam together from the outside so that it's locked tight. And our thick boy has a standard issue double chin, so to make that I'm just going to place the sock over his head, trim off the top, and ladder stitch that second layer of fun all the way around. To expose the face, I'll take a pair of scissors and carefully snip a hole in the top layer, shaping a little Kenny hole that I'll tack down using the running stitch. I'm being careful to make sure the edges are stitched in there under the seam. Before we move on, I say it's time to add some eyes, so let's see. I like this pair of splotchy matte gray ones, they kinda go with the vibe. But first I'll put in those dark circles, and I'm hoping that'll make the eyes pop on this cool guy. Stitching on a button is pretty simple. Starting your stitch underneath the button, we just loop through the buttonholes, going with a plus shape, over and under a few times both ways, and stitching through the fabric as well, so the button isn't loose. And a neat way to keep your thread ends from showing is to run the needle to the other side of the doll and snip. The thread is trapped inside forever. Hat, get! I'm taking some gray felt and doubling it over for structure, then forming a ring. Stitch this together, and from that I'll outline a lid to stitch along the ring using an overcast stitch. I didn't have time to animate a tutorial on that stitch, so sorry. I didn't even have time to put jokes into this script, so... Hey there, champ. I was looking through the script today, and it's the weirdest thing. I'm not seeing any jokes at all. What's with that? Where are the yucks?
Oh yeah, I didn't feel like putting any bits into this one, so.
What does that even mean? What are you saying right now? You're not going to put a joke into the script? If you don't put any jokes into the script, then the people are going to laugh, and if they're not laughing, they're not going to want to watch the show. They got to laugh. They got to have a funny joke in it. I mean, I did the thing with the rock. That's funny, right? Okay. I know how I'm going to make this script fun. I'm going to take a look at this, and I'll be right back.
Okay, see you later.
And when that's done, we'll just flip the hat around and brick, brack, bop, we did it. Looks cute. Although, looking at Mega Man, I can't help but wonder if I kinda didn't pay attention to my scale sort of at all. But I think I can, turn this around? But yeah, seriously, this sucks, and I have to rebuild most of this stuff to a bigger scale. I didn't love the painted on dark circles, so my second time around I'm taking some of my black sock and taking the toe and cutting a notch up the side of it to form some stunning smoky eye. Maybe he's born with it? Yes. Probably. He's a robot. But then, Thunderman wasn't born an ice skater. Maybe it is Maybelline, I don't know. Anyway, I want to block out Blockman's hat, that way I have a map of where to lay my brick pieces. Oh yeah, we're going three-dimensional. That means we need a lot of felt bricks. A lot. And we also need some fabric glue. I didn't mention that in the beginning of the video, and I don't know why, because oh my robot god, it is 50% of this project. And once we're tired of waiting for the fabric glue to dry, we'll use super glue to lock down some of the trickier pieces. I'm not kidding about how many bricks we need to make this. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 13 bricks for the head alone. And that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but we're talking 2 or 3 layers of felt and a lot of patience, trimming, overlapping, waiting. Look at this. Look at this madness, this wheel of gray destruction. The top bricks are specifically cut to fold and taper into the center. And then we need to shade each brick, really push that depth. I'm ready for a nap just after making the cap, but we'll stitch on. Let's finish the head by adding the ears, or whatever. We're basically making little hats again, hooray! At least there aren't any bricks involved in this, just some fabric glue and some red buttons on the inside. Fabric glue to press the pieces to the side of the head, and waiting. Now I can build the body and plunge deep into the bowels of insanity. Okay, so 2 sheets of felt folded over, pinned around the front, and then I used an overcast stitch to attach the felt. The overcast stitch is just looping through the fabric over and over again. Trim the excess. Pin more felt, this time trimming around the back. Trim more excess. More overcast stitching. It looks kind of like I'm binding a book. That's neat. And instead of stitching to the front, I'm gonna glue it so as to keep the seamless aesthetic. Okay then, time for the bricks. Done. Alright, map it out. Let's mark up all the bricks, one by one. I could give a number to the total bricks that I'm putting on this body, but it doesn't do justice to the 26 total sheets of felt that I'm cutting up to create each brick of differing size, varying levels of thickness. You can pause this shot if you want, just so you can count. This is the belly piece. It's over 10 layers of acrylic felt, the craft fabric of Satan. And after all the gluing and inking and pressing and waiting, I'm starting to think that this rock I brought from outside put some kind of curse upon my soul. Alright, baby, we're back in it. Get a load of this, you're gonna love it. Alright, so here's the theme. It's a creepypasta.
No. No, thank you.
Creepypasta.
We're not doing a creepypasta. That doesn't even make any sense.
Once I brought that giant rock into my home, I became inexplicably uneasy. At first, it was faint whispers, calling my name. But then came the dreams. Night after night, I would wake up feeling the rock's crushing weight upon my chest. Was it getting heavier? After a week, I noticed the scraping along the floor. Perhaps this rock was more than it seemed.
Yeah, except I just picked up this rock this morning.
And that's when I realized I'd been filming this video since November.
Oh my god!
So to finish the body off, I'm tracing out a circle that I'm going to glue into the bottom of the piece. Looks good. Bottom looks okay. Now let's clear out all this stuff because I don't want to see it again. Then we can go ahead and make the limbs. The limbs are still intensive. I've got my teal sock, what's the left of it. I want to start with his pauldrons, if you will. And this is just like making the body, only I'm cinching up one side, flipping it, and leaving the other side open so that I can stick a little yellow hat inside. This was probably the part I was looking forward to most in this entire project. Look at how great these things are. Look at that. Alright, the arms are simply a series of tubes. We start with the socks inside out, and when they're stitched up, we flip them, stuff them, and we move down to the forearm piece. I went with white for the lower portions of the limbs just because the hands and feet were white. And speaking of hands, this part is pretty simple. Just stitch out the shape of a mitten. It's important, though, that after we stitch the shape, we cut around it so that when we flip it right side out, the shape is free to move around. Stuff and stitch and attach all these pieces together. The teal sock is pulled over and stitched to the forearms. And then the upper arms to the pauldron. Alright, I got it.
I don't have time to... Whoa! What? Come on! Man, you're naked! Stop. Just stop with the gimmicks, alright? Not everything on the internet needs to be some kind of shock and awe experience. Nobody is watching a video about doll making for the sex or the jokes or any of that. If the content is good, people will watch it. And it doesn't need anything other than the passion of the people who create it. That's all.
Well then, it seems I have nothing left to teach you.
What the fuck is happening today?
We're nearing the home stretch at this point. I remembered that Blockman has knee and elbow pads, so I built 4 more bricks from the power of my tears and glued those to the elbows, then knees. Once they're set, it's paint time, so I gotta shake up my stick. Now, if I were to do this again, I might have gone with a bottle of paint and a brush, but the paint pen worked fine. It does take several coats, but thankfully it didn't need a lot of time to dry. Also, you can see that the pen frays the sock quite a bit. You can snip the frays with your scissors, but if you have an electric fabric trimmer, that's definitely faster. Unless, you forget to take the cap off, and then it's not so fast. When it's dried up, I can sew the limbs on, and I'm going to start by anchoring into the body, then taking the thread through the shoulder into a button that will complete the signature look.
And so that's Block Boy for you. This thing took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. In hindsight, I guess that makes sense. The felt was pretty time consuming, and the painting was time consuming as well. Just a lot of different parts in general, a lot of different practices going on. But I'm happy with the way that this guy turned out. Something I really like about this one is the dimension that we get. There's all the varied sizes of the bricks coming together is pretty cool. And then you've got the dimensionality of the dimensionism. It's got detail, is essentially what I'm getting at. I'm proud of the amount of detail that is in this guy. I like the buttons for the eyes, but maybe something a little bit white to help them sort of pop out. I don't know. He's also a little wimpy, I think. Just in the legs, you can tell that he really skips out on the leg day. And in comparison to our Mega Man, he's so close to being on game scale, you know? And then he's just a bit too large. But whatever, I'm happy with it. So I found a GameStop that was selling the Mega Man Blockman toy pack. And so I thought I'd actually just do a little compare. Is this making you collector people unhappy? Is that are some of you people strictly in the box? So this is a big reason why I do this show, right? It's to either make a doll based on a game character that we never see merchandise of, or to take one that, you know, has been done but hasn't really been done justice, I think. And so we've got a Blockman toy. This whole 3-pack is like 15 bucks. These tiny little guys. And 15 bucks is probably what I spent making this monstrosity over here. And so, I mean, you can decide what's worth it to you. Will he stand? Does he stand? Oh. 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 No, he doesn't stand. This guy stands though, right? Nope. If you ask me, I think that if you've got the time, you gotta make one of these yourself. It's got a lot more character than what you're gonna find in these. Look, they didn't even put the little Scoobities in there. What is that? And you've got groove work happening here to define the bricks, but there's no shadow on there. That's a little disappointing, especially if you're gonna pay, again, $15 for this. So moral of the story is, if you don't see the art that you want in the world, make it. Anyway, this was fun. I love Mega Man. It's like my favorite thing. Eventually, I'd love to make all 6,000 Robot Masters, adding Blockman to my collection of robots. So, anyway, it's about all the time that I've got for today. I'm gonna go drop this rock back off in the parking lot where I found it. So in the meantime, keep making stuff, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, bye. Oh. Okay. Whoa! Oh god, no. Oh, I dropped the rock. Oh, Blockman down. Oh. Ooh, no, that's really bad. Oh god, it's heavier when you gotta bend down for it. Oh, okay. Okay. Drop the last one. Drop it.